Well, here we are, episode number 2, Legends of the Brewhouse. We're celebrating 30 years of the Fitger's Brewhouse here in
Time
Duluth.
flies, man.
Time flies, man. And we're here with a dear friend of mine and a true legend of the Brewhouse. This is the Roots rocker, Paul Metsa. Back 30 years ago, day 2 of the Brewhouse, Paul was our very first musician, and we were musing about some of the opening acts and some of the stories we could tell. But then, Paul, you must have played here 100 times since then. But can you remember, Paul, the very first day you came in here?
I do. I remember a really long line.
Yep.
And it was, I did my very first gig in Duluth under my own name. I played here with my band Cats Under the Stars. We did R.T. Quinlan's downtown, and back when it was the Silver Hammer. In fact, I remember a woman came up to me. She was one of those women that would just smoking cigarette after cigarette at the bar when you could, drinking her, brandy Coke.
Yeah.
And I remember it was the middle of February, colder than hell, and she came up to me and she goes, "I'd rather suck wind than listen to your band." And I go, "Welcome to freaking Duluth." And then, but anyway, fast forward a few years, and I put up my first record, actually 40 years ago, just this past October, called Paper Tigers at 12-inch LP. And I opened up for Taj Mahal at the North Shore Theater. So KUMD was also really good to me. John Ziegler was playing my record all the time. And so I started playing up here semi-regularly. And then I'm not sure, you and Tim might have just seen me play somewhere in Ashby.
North Shore, and I knew from you from Minneapolis, but in Tim too as well. Yep. Yes, we invited you in, and I remember probably better than you because maybe you were not always fully mindful when you would show up at times, but
actually, I always have been. I'm always
exactly
pretty aware, not necessarily by the end of the night. But like Keith Richards said, he goes, "I always start the tour clean."
Well, I remember Paul walking in. Well, the story's interesting. That night you opened for us, the very first day, our head chef walked out the door.
Of course, right?
30 years in, this is 30 years, she just threw her towel in and just walked out the door. And there's a line out the door, Metsa's playing. You're walking in with your guitar, working through this crowd to get into the joint. It was cover charge was $1. And she walks out the door, and what do you do? Yeah. So there I am flipping burgers, Tim's slinging beers, and we're doing what any 20-something would do and just do what it takes to get it done.
Right.
Meanwhile, you started. No need. You're a pro. No need for leadership, and you just started shredding. Crowd's going crazy, and music scene at the Fitger's Brewhouse was born, dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud to be a part of it. And both you and Tim are still very good friends of mine, have been, ever since. And it's been fun to see what you've done with it. And, of course, what Tim's doing over in Superior. You've always been in Cedar Lounge. You've always been supporters of music. And I remember Tim telling me, now we also had, let's mention, we had a legendary show here, Jimmy LaFave. I put, he's not with us anymore, may rest in peace. Probably one of the greatest Dylan interpreters in America next to Richie Havens. And I met Jimmy in ¡89 down in Austin, Texas. He got me a record deal that really went nowhere with Tomato Records. I introduced him to Nora Guthrie, but we were the same age. We were just a few months apart, but we were always very supportive of each other and loved each other's music. He's also a great songwriter, but it's a phenomenal singer. Could sing rings around any guy, any woman or guy.
Yeah.
And so he always, he was playing somewhere like in Milwaukee, and I said, "Hey man, let me put together a show in Minneapolis for you," which we did at the Fine Line. We did a co-bill with the Paul Metsa group and Jimmy LaFave and Night Tribe. And then I called you guys and said, "Hey man, Jimmy needs a place to play up here." And of course, he's a huge Dylan guy.
Yep.
So we came up and we had a great night at the Brewhouse. Yep. We did KUMD in the afternoon.
Yep.
And then we went and KDAL TV followed us around We went out and sat on the front porch at Bob Dylan's house. In fact, I just dug up that video.
After you played at the Brewhouse, that. Or the next
The
day, whatever.
afternoon of.
Yeah, sweet.
Right, so we did KUMD, played in the studio. Then we went, hung out there, and then we came and played here.
Yeah.
And then we drove up to Hibbing the next day, so I could, because I knew the guy, Greg French, who owned Dylan's house.
Yeah.
And Greg actually ended up giving both Jimmy and I windows out of the Bob Dylan house. Jimmy, I don't know where it ended up. His, I'm sure it's in a safe spot. Mine is in a very safe spot here in Duluth. And so, yeah, that was just
Bob
that.
Dylan's window in
Yeah.
his house. It's now sitting in your house.
Yeah.
And you look through it, and what do you see? Portal to
Visions
something.
of Johanna. I mean, that's what I do.
Right.
I mean, when I had it separate, now it's in
Yeah.
safe storage.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
figuring out what to do with it. May I sell it? Maybe one of these days. But I took a picture. This is bedroom window. So I've got a picture of what his view of his bedroom window, and then I put like a postcard of Woody Guthrie and Nora Guthrie,
Yep.
who became a friend of mine, and I think I had Molly in there from Molly's Bar.
Yeah. Oh,
from
yeah, yeah,
Superior.
yeah.
So,
Mom.
but that was a phenomenal couple of days. Thanks to you guys for having us up.
So when you think of the scene, the music scene in Duluth, and at that time we had, God, what's the name of the hotel that's now torn down, where Canal Park Brewery is now? That used to
Park Inn.
Park Inn. You used to jam there all the time, didn't you?
Oh, and I have a story from that.
Here we go.
We cannot tell on this piece.
Okay.
But if you see me around on the street, buy me two martinis, and I'll tell you the story. It's pretty good. Not fit for it's you got to be over 18 anyway to tell that story. But yeah, I used to play there about every 6 weeks, and then from there, Chris Mackey, who started the Bayfront Blues Fest. Well, short story from back in kind of my wilder days, I had we would play for 2 nights at the Park Inn, and we get rooms and a bar tab and whatever their bar food was. Somehow I owed the bar $200 on Saturday.
You don't know why. You don't know how. Just some mystery.
Thanks for not buying drinks for buddies and this and that. So he called me up and he said, "Hey, we're doing our first Bayfront Blues Festival." And I said, "Well, hey," I said, "Here, I'll tell you what." I said, "I owe you $200. I said, I'll charge you $400 for my trio. You just owe me $200, give $100 a guy." So I played the very first Bayfront Blues Fest from that. It's all, Duluth is so connected. My mother and father met here, and
Really?
My 3 siblings went. Two sisters to St. Scholastica, brother went to UMD, and I actually took classical guitar lessons from a guy named Robert Wander, who I found that you're familiar with Dessa Darling,
For sure.
the rapper.
Yeah.
It was her father.
Wow. For Dan.
Yeah, her dad.
Wow.
Duluth. Yeah, and so I learned how to play.
Yeah, the birthplace of Bob Dylan, and you were born in Hibbing too, weren't you?
I was born in Virginia.
Virginia, that's
Minnesota.
right. So you weren't far from Dylan's home.
22 miles away, and
Yeah.
when I got old enough, when I was 14 or so, to hitchhike,
Yeah.
I would hitchhike over to Hibbing and just look at that front door at 2425 7th Avenue, which was 2 blocks down from the high school, and go, the man that walked out of that door 10 years ago or whenever it was, is in the process of changing American culture as we speak.
Yeah.
And so the lesson, one of Dylan's lessons to me, and there's a handful, is that you can get there from here.
Oh, right. This isn't that some minuscule little place, and
Yeah.
right.
And to further that, it's not publicly announced yet, but I will be performing at the Bob Dylan Center at the end of January. I can't give you any more info than that.
Yeah.
So I did get there from here.
Well, a lot of the various media outlets would refer to you as the other Bob Dylan of Minnesota.
The other great folk singer,
Was
which
that-
is
yeah,
I'm
that's-
proud
yeah,
to say,
yeah,
from
yeah,
the Minnesota's Wasabi Iron Range. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
golden quote
Yeah.
from Huffington Post. But to get back to what you were talking about Duluth as a music scene, I remember one time, God, it was probably late 90s, I was talking to Tim. Now, when did Tim and his brother start their magazine?
Ripsaw, that would be not 10 years after we opened, so it'd be probably 20 years ago today.
Yeah. So I remember him telling me, and he's a good musician himself, he said, I really think at some point Duluth could become, if not the next Austin, Texas, a lot like Austin, Texas. And he was right on the money.
Well, Trampled by Turtles, Charlie Parr, a lot of names down here,
And
Eric Koskinen got his first act here.
yeah, and I'll take a little ownership because I gave Charlie was busking down in Minneapolis.
Yep.
And he moved up to Duluth. And I had a little Tuesday night, I called it the Artist Corner at Mazelax.
Yep.
And I had enough money to throw, $30 to beers and burgers to the musicians. But this guy would come down from Duluth and he looked like an 8th grade geography teacher.
Yep.
He had wire rim glasses, a white shirt, short hair, and he'd play this national guitar. And he blew me out. He was so freaking good. And so I'd always, he'd drive down in the middle of winter to play to do a half hour. And I'd always take money out of my own pocket. Here's 20 for the guys. Turned out to be Charlie Parr.
Yeah.
And then we did some big spring fests at Mazelax. And I think it's probably one of the first gigs that Trampled by Turtles played. So, and then I opened up Nice Polonaise Room in Northeast Minneapolis, which was actually on the other side of East Hennepin. So it wasn't officially Northeast, but don't tell anybody that. But I started playing. It was the first musician that didn't have an accordion that played on that stage. Because that's where Ruth Adams and the World's Most Dangerous Polka Band played. But I started playing there on Sunday nights.
The accordion, obvious.
Yeah, and I said, give me $100, a martini, and a prime rib sandwich. I said, in 6 weeks of Sundays. I said, if nothing happens, we'll shake hands as part of friends. Well, I played there for almost 4 years.
4 years.
And then by the time I moved on to become the music director of Famous Days, Molly Mayer took over my spot with young Eric Koskinen on guitar. So, but it's kind of the beautiful and the incestuous part of the Minnesota music scene, the Duluth, Minneapolis connection. So I give Tim and you guys boatloads of credit to this day supporting the music scene.
Yeah, Tim and Brad, just their music, their love for music and their skills, and it's just fun to watch that. So 30 years. So here we are. It's Paul Metsa, ladies and gentlemen, 30 years of Brewhouse. Paul is the first one ever to play on the stage, and the stories go on. Paul, how else can people reach you on your radio show
Just
stuff?
paulmetsa.com. I've got 2 radio shows. We've been doing reruns of my TV show. But I've got a lot of things going on. I do want to say one thing about the Twin Ports.
Let's hear it.
It's that you can't have a great music scene unless you have a sophisticated and loving audience willing to listen to whatever you want to play. And it's one of the reasons why Duluth Superior has such a great music scene. Not only the great musicians, but they've got an audience that's willing to let you be yourself.
Well said.
Thanks,
Rocket.
Rocket.
Thanks for all the years, man. And here's the 30 more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Got it.